Katie Holmes' 20-year-old daughter Suri officially dropping estranged dad Tom Cruise's surname to be Suri Noel, taking her mom's middle name as her last.
The man who made a career out of running just ran straight into a wall he might not be able to climb over. Stop what you're doing because the mask just slipped and there is no putting it back on. We've all been whispering about it for years, but Suri Cruise just dropped a bomb that makes every rumor look like child's play. This wasn't some routine update. This was a public, deliberate, and undeniably bitter line drawn in the sand. The timing is sinister, the silence from his camp is deafening, and every single person in Hollywood knows exactly what this means. The name that disappeared, so here's the headline everyone's talking about. Suri Cruise is not legally Suri Cruise anymore. She has dropped the Cruise surname entirely and is now legally going by Suri Noel. Noel happens to be her mother Katie Holmes' middle name, and it was voter registration records out of Pennsylvania that actually confirmed this to the public. Now, this wasn't some big press release moment. There was no Instagram caption, no tearful sit-down interview, nothing dramatic or staged. It came out through public records, the kind of paperwork nobody thinks to check unless a reporter goes digging for a story. Page 6 reportedly broke it first, and outlet after outlet has now independently confirmed it, from People to Fox News to just about every entertainment desk out there. Think about that for a second. This is a young woman who grew up with cameras following her literally from the moment she was born back in April of 2006, and the moment she legally reshapes her own identity. She says nothing. Not one word, not one caption, not one comment. It came out through paperwork instead of her own voice. And to be clear, outlets have been careful to point out this appears to be a personal decision about her own identity, not some kind of public statement aimed directly at her father. But intentional or not, the timing and the total silence around it still speak volumes. When you make a move this significant and don't say a single sentence about it publicly, what does that silence actually mean? Wait, this isn't even new. Here's where it gets interesting. This legal update is basically Suri making official something she'd already been doing quietly for 2 years. Back in June of 2024, when she graduated from the famed LaGuardia High School in New York City, her name in the official graduation program wasn't Suri Cruise. It was already printed as Suri Noel. At the time, a lot of outlets brushed it off as maybe a one-off, a symbolic little gesture just for the ceremony. Some assumed it was simply about avoiding paparazzi attention on her big day. She'd actually already started using the Noel name a bit earlier than that too, performing under it during her high school production of Head Over Heels. So by the time graduation rolled around, it wasn't even the first time she'd worn the name in public. But now we know none of it was a one-time thing. It was actually the opening move in something much bigger and much more permanent. She carried that name with her when she headed off to Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh that fall. And when she registered to vote in Allegheny County back in October of 2024, during her freshman year, she registered under Suri Noel. Pennsylvania courts have confirmed that residents are required to register to vote using their legal name, which means this wasn't some casual nickname situation or stage name gimmick. This was already her legal identity by the time she started college life. So this has quietly been who she is for 2 full years now. The public record just finally caught up to what she'd already decided in private, possibly even before she left New York for good. So if she'd already let go of the name 2 years ago in every way that mattered, what took the actual legal paperwork so long to catch up? Let's talk about why this feels like a confirmation and not just a random administrative update. Suri's relationship with her father has been the subject of speculation for well over a decade now. Basically ever since Katie Holmes filed for divorce back in 2012 after 5 years of marriage. And Tom hasn't exactly stayed quiet about those rumors over the years. He's actually pushed back on them hard, more than once in some pretty public ways. Back in 2013, during a defamation lawsuit against 2 tabloid publishers who had run cover stories claiming he'd abandoned Suri, Tom gave a sworn deposition defending his role as a father. In that filing, he said the assertion that he'd abandoned Suri after the divorce was patently false, insisting he had, in his own words, not cut her out of his life whether physically, emotionally, financially, or otherwise. He claimed that back then, when Suri was only 6 years old, they spoke on the phone nearly every day, and that he received constant updates from Holmes about how she was doing. During that same legal battle, things got a little more uncomfortable for him publicly. In a deposition, when a lawyer pressed him about comments suggesting the long stretches of time he spent away from Suri while filming felt comparable to a soldier being deployed overseas, Cruise reportedly responded that yes, that's kind of what it felt like, specifically referencing how brutal filming Edge of Tomorrow had been on him. His legal team later said the comment was made lightly and taken out of context, insisting he was essentially joking. Either way, it didn't exactly help the public perception that his career always came first. Now fast forward more than a decade to her actual high school graduation in 2024, a milestone most parents would move mountains for. Tom wasn't there. Reports at the time said he skipped the ceremony entirely, instead attending a Taylor Swift concert in London while overseas filming a Mission Impossible sequel. There's also a claim from a source back in 2018 who alleged that despite reportedly being permitted 10 days a month with Suri under a custody arrangement, he simply didn't use that time. So here's the contradiction laid out plainly. He swore under oath, in a court of law, that he never abandoned her. But he skipped one of the single biggest days of her entire life for a concert. Which version of that story do you actually believe? Katie's quiet role in all this. Now, while Tom has stayed mostly silent on the name change specifically, Katie Holmes hasn't exactly hidden how she feels about her daughter growing into her own person. Multiple reports describe Holmes as proud and genuinely happy as Suri has stepped into adulthood, moved away for college, and now made this identity shift official. Holmes actually addressed the transition directly before Suri even left for school, telling one outlet that of course she'd missed the closeness of having her daughter nearby, but that she was very proud of her and happy for her, comparing it to her own memories of that same exciting age of new beginnings. And it wasn't just words. When the time came, Holmes was right there helping Suri physically move all of her clothes and furniture into her new life in Pittsburgh. And honestly, it tracks with everything we already know about their dynamic. Holmes has been the primary parent raising Suri in New York this entire time, largely keeping her out of the spotlight and, by most accounts, fiercely protecting her from the kind of media circus that follows the Cruise name wherever it goes. Holmes has spoken publicly before about how important it's been for her to shield Suri, especially given how visible she was as a baby and toddler. Their bond even shows up in Holmes's own creative work. Suri has appeared alongside her mother professionally, contributing vocals during the opening credits of Holmes's 2022 film Alone Together, and singing again for Holmes's 2023 movie Rare Objects. That's not exactly the profile of a distant, hands-off parent. That's a mother actively building a life and a body of work alongside her daughter, side by side. So when you put it all together, choosing Noelle, her mother's own middle name, instead of Cruise, doesn't read like a random pick out of a hat. It reads like a quiet, permanent nod to whichever parent actually showed up, day after day, year after year. So when a kid picks a name, isn't she also picking a side, even if she never actually says it out loud? Here's something that makes this whole story hit even harder. Suri isn't just dropping her father's name and disappearing into a quiet college life. She's actively building a career, and she's doing it entirely under Suri Noelle. After initially being rumored to lean towards studying fashion, Suri ended up enrolling in Carnegie Mellon's prestigious School of Drama, majoring in musical theater. It turns out her love for performing started back at LaGuardia, where she played Morticia Addams in a production of The Addams Family and later took on the role of Philoclea in Head Over Heels. Once she got to Carnegie Mellon, she kept building on that. Earlier this year, she appeared as Angel in a staged reading called Cosmic Microwave Background at Pittsburgh's New Hazlitt Theater. And now she's landed a role in Midsummer, a contemporary 90-minute reimagining of Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, set to debut on her home campus before the production travels all the way to Scotland for a run at the 2026 Edinburgh Festival Fringe, one of the largest performing arts festivals on the planet. Every single credit to her name right now, from the staged readings to the Shakespeare production to the vocals on her mom's films, is under Suri Noelle, not Cruise. She's not building an acting career riding on her father's fame or his last name at all. She's building it from scratch, under a name that belongs to her mother's side of the family. If she genuinely wanted to lean on the Cruise name for opportunities in Hollywood, wouldn't she be using it by now instead of walking away from it? The money rumors she's also had to shut down. While we're on the topic of the cruise name and everything tied to it, it's worth mentioning that this isn't the first time Suri's public image has needed cleaning up, and interestingly, it was Katie doing the cleaning, not Tom. Around the time Suri turned 18, reports circulated claiming she'd become a millionaire overnight after inheriting trust funds supposedly set up by both of her parents. Holmes shut that down fast. She took to social media calling the reports completely false, telling one outlet in no uncertain terms to stop making things up, and adding a pointed enough for emphasis. It was a rare moment where Holmes publicly pushed back instead of simply ignoring the headlines. For someone who's spent years avoiding media battles whenever possible, her decision to respond at all suggested she felt the rumors had crossed a line and could have real consequences for her daughter's privacy and safety. She even engaged directly with commenters who agreed that stories like that shouldn't even be legal to publish, given the safety risk they pose to a young woman just starting out on her own in the world. It's a small moment in the grand timeline, but it matters here because it shows a pattern. Every single time the public narrative around Suri gets things wrong, whether it's assumptions about inherited wealth or assumptions about her relationship with her dad, it's Katie's camp correcting the record, not Tom's. So who's actually been managing and protecting Suri's public story this whole time? And what does it tell you that it was never him? Why did his other kids stay close, but not Suri? Here's the detail that honestly makes this whole story click into place. Suri isn't Tom's only child. He also has two adopted kids from his marriage to Nicole Kidman, Isabella and Connor, both born in the 90s. And the difference in how those two relationships turned out compared to his relationship with Suri is honestly wild when you line it all up. Isabella and Connor have remained committed, practicing Scientologists their entire adult lives. And by most accounts, they've stayed genuinely close with their father because of it. Nicole Kidman, on the other hand, has spoken publicly and rather painfully about how distant she's become from her two oldest children specifically because of their devotion to the church, telling one interviewer that she has to protect those relationships and simply has to trust that what a child needs is love, even when their choices pull them away from her. Now flip that dynamic over to Suri. Katie Holmes reportedly fought to secure primary custody specifically to keep Suri away from the Church of Scientology altogether, and by every account we have, that's exactly what happened. Suri wasn't raised in the church, doesn't practice it, and has essentially none of the built-in closeness that seems to be the glue holding Tom's relationship with his older two kids together. So when you really sit with that pattern, it starts to look less like Tom is simply a busy, distant dad across the board, and more like his closeness with his children has a very specific condition attached to it. Isabella and Connor stayed in his world because they stayed in the church. Suri didn't, and neither did the relationship. So was it ever really about being a present father at all, or was it about something else entirely? There's actually a really recent detail that fits perfectly into this whole picture. Katie Holmes has just started stepping out publicly with a new boyfriend, an artist named Jason Bard Yarmosky, after the two reportedly met at a Tribeca Festival dinner earlier this summer. They've since been photographed together at movie premieres at a Ferragamo event in the Hamptons, and even made their first official public appearance as a couple, all while wearing coordinating outfits and looking about as smitten as two people can look. But here's the detail that actually matters for this story. Despite how public and affectionate the relationship has become, reports say Holmes has deliberately chosen not to introduce Yarmosky to Suri yet. She's reportedly taking things slow specifically because she doesn't want to rush her daughter into meeting someone new. That's not a small thing. That's a mother very consciously managing who gets access to her daughter's life, and when, even now that Suri is technically a grown adult living several states away at college. Compare that instinct to everything we've already covered about Tom. One parent is out here pumping the brakes on her own romantic life to protect her daughter's space. The other parent, according to Suri's own legal paperwork, doesn't even get to keep his last name attached to her anymore. So if one parent is this careful about who gets close to Suri, what does it say that the other parent apparently couldn't hold on to a spot in her life at all? She's not the only one doing this. Here's the part that makes this feel less like an isolated Suri situation and more like a full-blown trend among kids of the ultra-famous. Over in the Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie family, several of their children have made almost identical moves in just the past couple of years. Shiloh legally requested to drop Pitt from her name the very day she turned 18 back in 2024. Zahara and Maddox have also gone through their own legal filings to adopt Jolie instead of Pitt in their public and professional lives. And Vivian has already been appearing professionally under Jolie, including in her Broadway credits, before reportedly filing official court paperwork in 2026 to make the switch fully legal too. So when you line all of that up next to Suri's story, a pattern starts forming, doesn't it? These aren't isolated coincidences happening in a vacuum. These are kids of extremely famous, extremely wealthy fathers growing up, turning 18, and quietly, legally choosing to step out from under a surname that apparently came with more baggage than benefit. What does it say about fame itself when so many children of the world's biggest stars grow up and want nothing more than to shed the very name attached to it? So that's where things stand right now. Suri Cruise is legally Suri Noel. She's building a genuine acting career under that name. Her mother has been standing beside her every step of the way, and while nobody involved has come out and used the word estrangement directly, the timeline, the silence, the pattern with his other kids, and the company she's now keeping in this growing celebrity kid name change trend all seem to say it for her. Whether Tom Cruise ever addresses this directly is anyone's guess at this point, but for now, his daughter has made her choice loud and clear without saying a single word about it. What do you think this really means for their relationship going forward? Do you think Tom will ever publicly respond to this? Or is this the kind of thing that just stays quietly buried the way so much of his personal life does? Let us know exactly what you think down in the comments below, because we genuinely want to hear it. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we cover stories exactly like this one.